Oh, we're rolling. Oh, shoot. You guys didn't see that. You did not see that at all. Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back to Silva Productions. Still haven't picked the name really. Still haven't really thought it out. Still rolling with it. But anyways, welcome back. Welcome back. Due to the fact that a lot of people seem to have liked my last video I did on Khabib versus Conor, and the review I did that in that case, I decided to make some more videos. I'm probably gonna start making this maybe a weekly thing or anything that I can think of. But yeah, a lot of people seem to have liked it. I got about 6 likes and quite a bit of views, considering the fact that I didn't even market it. So I was pretty surprised by that. But thank you guys. Thanks for everyone who supported it. Thanks for the subscribers. Thanks for taking notice. Appreciate that. Thanks guys. Thank you. Anyways, obviously there were some people that weren't too happy about things I had to say about Khabib and Conor. Some people claimed that I was a Conor fanboy and this and that, but not really. I'm not a fanboy. Not Conor. I used to be, I'd say, but no, not now. Nowadays, not really. He's kind of a sellout in my opinion. But let's disregard that before I make some more people mad. Anyways, what I kind of wanted to talk about today, well, before I start off, I wanted to talk about really what my channel is about. And now, if you were to go to my channel right now and you were to look, you'd see, oh, well, what the heck? This guy's making music. Well, what the heck? He's rapping and he's trying to make MMA videos? Like, what? And, it's not very consistent in that sense, but really what I want to say about that is that really it has to do with the kind of things that I like. I like rapping. I like MMA. I like basically all those basic guy things. As you can see from my poster here, you can't really see it's Iron Man, but it's Iron Man. It's a little comic thing, whatnot. So you might just catch me talking about some comics sometime soon. Maybe the future Avengers coming up. Because I'm really into that as well. But basically, my channel is just going to be revolved around things that I really like and things I like to talk about, And I'm going to try to make this consistent as well. I'm going to try to make consistent MMA videos. If you're here because of my rapping, which I know very few of you are, I'm going to try to make more rap videos. I have some more coming out. I have 2 songs that I've been working on that I'm going to put out sometime soon. In terms of MMA, it's probably going to be one of the most that I put out, because there's a lot of things to talk about when it comes to MMA. So that's something that I'll definitely be putting up consistently. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so the first topic in this video is going to be my UFC 228 predictions. That is the Darren Till versus Tyron Woodley card that's coming up on September the 8th. It's actually in my hometown of Dallas, Texas, so you never know, I might just make a play-by-play, who knows. But in this video, I don't really want to talk about the fighters who not too many people know, because this fight, although it has a little bit of a big names, it has a lot of fights that people don't really know as well. So I'm not really gonna waste too much time on that. I'm really gonna just focus on the bigger names on the card. The first fight I want to talk about is Jimmie Rivera versus John Dodson. Now, starting off with like a bantamweight division, Jimmie Rivera, he came in with a lot of hype, because of his fight with Uriah Faber, and basically he showed that he pretty much showed in that fight that he belonged in the top 10. He's pretty sneaky with his leg kicks. He has pretty decent boxing. If you watch that video with TJ and him sparring, man, TJ didn't look so good in that. He was getting pieced up, man. But anyways, Jimmie Rivera, he had an impressive win against Thomas Almeida. If you haven't watched that fight, man, that fight, you should go watch that. That's a good fight. But he had a good showing against Thomas Almeida. Thomas Almeida, another guy who was coming into the bantamweight division, he was really hyped up as well, because he was just destroying guys in the little minor leagues. But Jimmie Rivera, wow, he really did some work on him. And I believe his last fight was with what was his name? That Moraes guy, and dang, he might have got wrecked, but let's not forget the fact that it was off the first exchange, and I'm not gonna say that was a lucky shot, but it was very, it was too quick for me to say that, that shows that he's not skilled. But anyways, Jimmie Rivera, he has really good boxing. He seems to really know how to cut off the octagon as well, because as you can see in that sparring with TJ is that TJ was cornered, and that's something that's really rare to see. We don't really see TJ being cornered because of his footwork and because of his understanding of the cage. But with Jimmie Rivera, it looked like Jimmie Rivera was actually picking him apart and having him up against the cage. That's something that's pretty impressive. So that's one of the first things I noticed. I was like, oh wow, so he knows really well how to angle off, something I talked about in my last video about boxing fundamentals, is angles. And Jimmie Rivera seems to really understand that pretty well. He showed that as well with Thomas Almeida, where he was cutting off the octagon. He was able to get his right hooks in, his right crosses pretty well. And then he sets those punches up with those leg kicks, which makes him even more dangerous. And considering that his body type, you could tell he's also an experienced wrestler. So I think he's one of the most well-rounded fighters in the division. So considering that he's fighting John Dodson, I don't see how John Dodson can win the fight. John Dodson, he knocked out TJ Dillashaw, but come on, let's be honest, that was a fluke. TJ versus John Dodson too. I think we all know how that would go. John Dodson, he's pretty quick, he's pretty versatile, he's a small guy, so that kind of gives him the ability to be so quick. But I feel like John Dodson he's already reached the peak of his career, and I feel like for him, he's not really going to be getting much better. I don't feel like he'll be much of a challenge for Jimmie Rivera. So I definitely see Jimmie Rivera win that fight pretty easy. Okay, and moving on to the next fight, Yair Rodriguez versus. Now I'm gonna mess his name up, but I think we all know who I'm talking about. This is one of those guys, huh? His name is Zabit Magomedsharipov. I can't say his fucking name. Zabit Magomedsharipov. I can't say his fucking name. Okay, I'm not gonna. It's Zabit. He's another Russian guy. He's coming in from Russia. A lot of people are making a lot of comparisons to Khabib, but if you know him, you know that they're nothing alike in their fighting style. Zabit, unlike Khabib, is a much more well-rounded fighter, and he looks pretty fucking great. But in Yair versus Zabit, the person I'm going to go with, I'd say, is Zabit. Now, let me give you a little background for Zabit. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't watch too many of his fights. I only watched his last fight, and I don't even remember the guy's name. But that guy, he actually had some pretty decent boxing as well, where he didn't really use kicks. The guy that Zabit was fighting, he didn't really use kicks. He didn't really use wrestling or anything like that. But he was pretty good with his footwork, and he was pretty decent with his boxing. So he was pretty great at coming in on the inside with Zabit. So he would be able to come inside and then throw hooks and then throw to the body. And so that was pretty impressive by the other guy. When I was watching that fight, I was like, wow, okay, this guy's actually putting up a good fight. And then Zabit, when you watch Zabit, you're thinking, okay, the other guy's great, but then you see Zabit and you're like, wow, Zabit is another level, because you'd see him throw jabs, you'd see him throw some slick crosses, you'd see him throw some leg kicks, you'd see him throw some spinning back kicks, and then you'd see him go for outside trips. You don't see too many fighters doing that. And not only was he throwing this stuff, but he was throwing it with fluidity too. Like it didn't look awkward, it didn't look stiff. And so to me, that last fight that I saw by him, it was really impressive, because not only was it impressive with his technique and his difference in style, but the fact that he was able to put up such a performance against such a talented guy. Because the other guy, although he wasn't this well-rounded fighter, the other guy was actually a pretty great striker as well. So I was pretty impressed with Zabit's last performance. When it comes to being well-rounded, Zabit is one of those guys that's up there. I believe Chris Weidman, who he trains with, I'm not sure if he trains with Matt Serra in that camp and that whole deal there, but Zabit, he trains with Chris Weidman, and Chris Weidman himself, although he's not some magical guy, but he himself said that, wow, Zabit is actually the greatest fighter in the UFC right now. Now, that's a crazy statement to say on a guy who's barely in the top 10 or barely getting up to the top 10. And so that's something insane that we don't really hear too much for someone to say it so early on in their career. But considering the last fight that I saw by Zabit, I'm kind of impressed, and I could see him being one of the greatest, no doubt about it, because of his well-rounded style. Him versus Yair, considering how UFC works and how MMA works, where basically the more well-rounded fighter will win, I'm going to have to go with Zabit. Yair Rodriguez, he's an amazing Taekwondo fighter, but apart from that, there's not much else. I know that he says he trains some boxing, but if you watch his fights, you don't really see that. You don't really see him throwing, and you don't really see him being so fluid with his boxing. You don't really see him having great footwork. You don't really see him having that square stance. You don't see him creating angles. You mainly see him creating problem for the other fighter with his kicks and his crazy double kicks, where basically he'll touch one leg and then he'll kick you to the head. So basically he'll trick you thinking he's gonna be leg kicking you, but then he'll head kick you. First, that's really like the most versatile thing I've seen from Yair Rodriguez. He has a lot of great spinning back kicks, a lot of spinning kicks, a lot of stuff. It's pretty great. But considering that that's all he has, it's hard for me to see Yair doing much else. In terms of grappling, Yair he got destroyed by Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar just mounted his ass and started beating his ass on the ground just the whole fight. Considering that Frankie Edgar is so small and Zabit is just so much bigger than Frankie Edgar. I think he's taller than Yair Rodriguez too. Yeah, his height's 73 inches compared to Yair Rodriguez 71 inches. Considering that, I feel like Zabit, he doesn't even have to strike with the guy. If he really wanted to, I feel like he could have like a full training camp of just grappling and then jiu-jitsu, and I wouldn't say he could do the same thing as Frankie Edgar, but he could definitely, intimidate Yair Rodriguez with his grappling, and then just pick him apart with his striking, no doubt about it. Because the thing about karate and taekwondo fighters is that they fight at a very long range because of their kicks. Obviously, with those kicks, you have to have that range. You have to be at a certain range. And Zabit, considering that he already is so well rounded with his striking, and he himself uses taekwondo with his spinning back kicks, I feel like he understands that range, and I feel like Zabit is going to be able to just close the distance. I feel like he's going to be in his face with his boxing. He's going to be in his face with the grappling, and he's just going to have him up against the cage. I don't feel like he's going to let him breathe, and basically that's how you're going to have to treat taekwondo fighters. For Yair, I just don't see. I can see him maybe if he really was able to create that range and just keep that range. Maybe he could come out with a decision, but I just don't see him possibly getting a finish. I don't see that happening. I can see Zabit maybe finishing him, maybe taking him down and submitting him, or getting a decision win. I don't really see the fight ending in a knockout because neither fighter really has that kind of power. But as far as it goes, both of them are pretty well rounded and pretty much impressive. So that's gonna be a good fight. Yep. So Zabit wins that fight in my opinion. Okay, going on to the next fight. I'm not so sure if I want to talk about this fight, but I will anyways because I actually like both of these fighters. Jessica Andrade versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz. This fight is a good fight, definitely. I'm gonna be honest with you, this one's a hard one. This one is a hard one. Jessica Andrade, she just keeps walking forward, man. She takes those punches. She really works hard, and she's a really good wrestler. But at the same time, Karolina, she's a really good inside fighter. And she's much bigger than Jessica Andrade. She has a 2-inch reach advantage. If Jessica Andrade can take it to the ground and just do what she's been continuing to do, then she can definitely win the fight. But if Karolina Kowalkiewicz can stuff her takedowns and stop her and basically just fight from inside the clinch like she's so used to, then I can see Karolina winning this fight. As far as it goes, my pick, I'm going to have to say Jessica Andrade. I think Jessica Andrade is going to take this fight. Mainly because Karolina, although she's good at inside fighting, I don't really see much else from her. She's not very good from the outside. She doesn't use her range. She doesn't do anything like how most of the fighters that have beat Jessica Andrade does. Like Joanna. Joanna was basically just able to keep her at bay with her leg kicks and with her head kicks. She was, Jessica Andrade, every time she'll try to come in, Joanna was just she would just square off and then just head kick or leg kick, and it would seem to really hurt Jessica. But as far as Karolina, she doesn't do too much of that. She doesn't fight at a range. She usually fights on the inside, and fighting on the inside with the wrestler, that's something that's very dangerous. And so if she can catch her by surprise, or if she can train something else differently, come up with some other kind of skill, and then maybe. But as far as it goes, I see Jessica winning that fight. The next fight is Nicco Mantano. I can't even say her name either. But Nicco Mantano, the tough winner that she became the automatic flyweight champion, versus Valentina Shevchenko. Now, what needs to be said about this fight? I mean, come on. Just what needs to be said. If you know anything about this fight, you know who's gonna win. There's no doubt about it. My lord, Valentina. If you watch her last fight, I don't remember the other chick's name either, but if you watch that last fight, man, that fight was brutal. Oh my gosh, that fight was brutal. Valentina was beating her ass on the ground. She was beating her ass standing up. It's a scary fighter, man. She looks buff, I mean, to be honest, when I see her, she kind of reminds me of Golden Frieza because of her forehead and shit. I mean, I'm not trying to, like, say shit, but she kind of reminds me of her a little bit. She kind of reminds me of Frieza a little bit. But, I mean, no homo, though, but Valentina's kind of hot as fuck, She got, like, a big ass and shit, oh, shit. But, anyways, with Valentina, it's pretty obvious she's going to win that fight. I don't really see too much from Nicco, obviously. If you look at Valentina's striking, is fucking scary fluid, scary powerful. So much more skill involved compared to Nicco, and that's a scary fight. I heads up to Nicco for taking that fight and not vacating the title like a Darren because, man, that's a scary fight right there. But anyways, Valentina, it's pretty obvious why, there's no real reason to debate that. Okay, so now we're on to the main event. Tyron Woodley versus Darren Till. Now, Darren Till, that guy, there's a lot of hype. There's some hype behind him. Not as much hype as there should have been, considering his last fight with Stephen Thompson. But there's definitely still some hype behind him. And he's scoring off against Tyron Woodley. Now, that's a good fight. That's a good fight. And the reason I want to say this is a good fight, because in my opinion, this is something really close to how Khabib versus Conor McGregor can go. Where basically you have Tyron Woodley where he has decent striking, but his biggest game in this fight, in my opinion, is his grappling. Because he's going up against a Darren Till who has insane counter striking, just like how Conor does, and he has really, really powerful hands as well, but he himself has never really faced a legitimate wrestler. And so that's why I made that comparison where Khabib versus Conor, where you have these two guys who basically have these different tools. Now this fight is not exactly the same, but it's very similar to that. Now with Tyron Woodley, he's a big guy, but with Darren Till being bigger than him, that's something we've seen that in the past where Tyron Woodley has fought bigger guys. But he's never really fought guys with this level of striking. Now, with Darren Till, you can compare his striking almost to Stephen Thompson because he was able to go toe-to-toe with Stephen Thompson in a chess match where basically he was able to win that fight, and although I myself don't think he won that fight because I think Stephen Thompson did a little bit more, Darren Till was still able to go toe to toe with him. He was still able to, understand where he was and where he wasn't supposed to be. And considering that, going up against someone like a Tyron Woodley, that's something that's useful. With Tyron Woodley, it really depends on what he decides to do in this fight, how this fight is going to turn out to go. Because if Tyron Woodley decides to just strike with Darren Till, man, I see Darren Till knocking him out or maybe getting a decision win. Because Darren Till, when it comes to striking, I'm not going to say he's the best or anything like that, but his counter striking is pretty top notch. It's top level, Also, he has knockout power as well. Although we have had Tyron Woodley go up against top fighters like that, they have knockout power. We haven't really seen him go up against a counter striker with knockout power. Now, we've seen him go up against Stephen Thompson, but let's not forget the fact Stephen Thompson was a Taekwondo fighter, mainly a Taekwondo fighter, karate fighter, whatever you want to call it, and he didn't have too much power with his hands. And if you watch that fight, you don't see him kick too much. You see him more fighting with his hands, and the reason he wasn't kicking as much is obvious, is that if you kick a wrestler, you're gonna put yourself in a lot of danger. If you saw the first Stephen Thompson fight versus Tyron Woodley, Stephen Thompson threw, I'm not sure if it was a spinning back kick or a side kick, I don't remember what he threw, but he threw something where Tyron Woodley literally just walked through the kick. He closed in that range and he took his ass down and just started fucking beating his ass on the ground for that whole round. He just beat his ass on the ground. And that was, in my opinion, one of the reasons Stephen Thompson couldn't beat Tyron Woodley, is that his most important tool, his kicks, he didn't have access to because of his fear of Tyron Woodley's wrestling. And considering that, if you watch that fight, you really just see Stephen Thompson really being tentative with his kicks, being really scared. He didn't really see him taking too many chances in that fight. And that's, in my opinion, one of the reasons that he lost that fight. But with Darren Till, it's a different story. Is that Darren Till, he does throw leg kicks, he does throw head kicks, but he doesn't throw them in the same Taekwondo style. And he doesn't focus too much on the kicks, but rather he focuses on his punches a lot more. And he has a lot of power. And he's a counter striker. Now, that's something that we haven't really seen someone like a Tyron Woodley go up against. You know, he's gone up against people like Robbie Lawler, Nate Marquardt, Josh Koscheck. But the thing about all those fighters is that none of them were counter strikers. All of them were the kind of fighters that would just brawl with you. All of those fighters were in that same category. But the thing with Darren Till is that he's not going to brawl with you. He's going to be in there. He's going to be smart. He's going to pick his shots. He's going to know where and not to be. And you can expect him to have a training camp with full of wrestlers, you know. And so that's why, in my opinion, if Tyron Woodley was to strike with him, I think he would lose that fight, because Darren Till, in my opinion, he's just on a different level. The thing about Tyron Woodley is that he likes to throw those overhand rights to either set up the takedown or to just go for that KO. He likes to throw that double jab and then kind of blitz into the overhand right. Now, that's something that's really effective against fighters who just really are used to brawling, because they'll react to that double jab. Where if they see that double jab coming, they're either going to they're going to want to slip it, or they're going to want to themselves try to counter strike. But with that being the case, with them moving forward, Tyron Woodley kind of setting them up for that. You know, he hits them with that big T-bomb, you know, and so that's usually how it tends to go. That's how it went with Robbie Lawler. That's when we went with Josh Koscheck, and a lot of the other fights. But the thing about that is that I don't see him having success with that same technique with a Darren Till, because Darren Till, he knows how to fight long. He knows how to pick his shots. He knows how to see patterns too. Where I feel like Darren Till, if Tyron Woodley was to throw that double jab, I feel like Darren Till would, instead of moving forward, he'd probably wait for Tyron to throw that overhand right and then counter. And then if you get countered like that right when you're throwing your overhand right, man, that's scary, because if you're fighting someone like Darren Till, that's a lot of power coming at you. So you better be careful with that, Tyron Woodley. Now, this fight is really tough, because it really just once again, it really depends on how Tyron decides to fight. And the reason I say that is because if Tyron decides to go in there and just have a smart game plan and say, let's say, leg kick, and then he just starts to move to the he moves to the right instead of moving to the left, because isn't he? I believe he's an Orthodox, so he's right-handed. So if he's smart enough to move away from Darren Till's right hand rather than just move to his left, if he's able to move away from his right hand, away from his power hand, and avoid that, then I feel like he can be okay. There's not too much danger in Darren Till's left hand. And the thing about that is that Tyron Woodley, if he was to leg kick the lead leg of Darren Till, or if he was able to catch any of those shots, because I know Darren Till fights in a way that Muay Thai, so it's kind of hard to kick his leg. But if he's able to find a place for that leg kick, if he's able to angle off on Darren Till, kind of close off the octagon on him, and then wrestle him, then that's definitely a fight he can win, because Darren Till is not very experienced with wrestlers. So if Tyron Woodley can fight just like that, then I can see him definitely winning that fight. So, and he doesn't even have to stick with that game plan. If he leg kicks, wrestles, and then boxes, then that's a lot more things for Darren Till to worry about. Because Darren Till, after a while, after he starts to get scared of the wrestling, guess what? He's not going to expect the boxing. So then when Tyron comes in with the boxing, Darren's going to be like, oh shit, which one is it? Which one's going to come next? And then all for Tyron Woodley, all he has to do is just keep up the guessing game. Do what Darren won't expect. And basically, that can win him the fight. But once again, it all depends on how Tyron chooses to take this fight. Now, if I were him, I wouldn't take any chances, man. Darren Till, that guy's a killer, so it really depends. But as far as it goes, as my pick, It's a hard one to pick, man. It's a hard one to pick. Man. You know what? Oh, man. This one's harsh, man. This one's harsh. I don't know about this one. Tyron Woodley versus Darren Till, man. You're going to have to give me a second. Alright, I'm going to pause the video because I'm going to think about this for a little second. Alright, so I've made up my mind and I'm going to pick Tyron Woodley to win this fight. Now, the reason I'm picking Tyron Woodley is just because I feel like he's a smart fighter and he has the kind of camp that can really win him the fight. Considering he's trained with Duke Roufus and the whole thing they've had with leg kicks and their whole that camp is really big with that, and understanding that, I just see Tyron Woodley being able to come up with a smart game plan to beat Darren Till. Darren Till is a very dangerous fighter. He's a very scary fighter, different kind of striker, but Tyron Woodley's just much more well-rounded, and I see him winning that fight. So definitely, that's what I'm gonna go with. And on that note, that is going to be my prediction for UFC 228. Okay, so I'm not sure if I'm going to upload this video just like this or if I'm going to mix it with another video so that we can have it all in one. But as far as I know, alright guys, until next time.